Welcome back to my channel, guys. I'm Amber and this is the Dining In Cookbook Club. We have been cooking our way through the Food52 Genius recipes, and here's what's on the menu for this week. Let's go ahead and get started. For our first recipe, it's our black pepper tofu on page 170 if you want to cook along or follow along with us at home. And so let's see how this bad boy ended up tasting. Whoa. Whoa. Now that we have tasted it, I wanted to kind of expound on that a little bit more and dive in deeper of what I might have done differently if you want to make this dish at home. Because I did like it, there's just some modifications that needed to take place to make this dish really excel. So let's take a closer look and see what exactly I would do differently. Overall, this dish comes together very easily. To get started, you first cut up some tofu into 1-inch cubes and place them into a large bowl. Then dust the tofu with cornstarch and toss together. Now, the recipe doesn't specify how much cornstarch to use, so I recommend starting off with 1 tablespoon and then gradually adding more as needed. In a large skillet, add enough oil to the pan so the oil is about 1/4 inch deep. Again, the recipe doesn't specify how much oil to put in, but depending on your pan size, this could vary. For me, I was able to use 1/2 cup and that was suffice. So just judge according to your pan size. Bring the oil to medium-high heat and add the tofu in batches, stirring them in the oil until all the sides are lightly browned and golden and have a thin crust around the edges. Then transfer to the tofu to paper towels and repeat with the remaining tofu until all of it is completed. Now you're going to scrape down the oil and bits out of the pan and then return the pan to the stovetop. Okay, now here are where my recommendations of switching things up a little bit come into play. So as you can see, I added 11 tablespoons of butter to this pan, which, holy crap guys, look how much butter there is. Now, I recommend actually reducing that and adding only 2 tablespoons of butter because what ended up happening is I had to pour the extra butter out because look at this, guys. There's so much extra butter at the bottom. After assembling everything together, it was just literally sitting in a puddle of butter. It was ridiculous. So definitely reduce it to 2 tablespoons and then gradually add more tablespoons as needed. After the butter is melted, you're going to add your shallots and chilies, and this is where my next recommendation would come into play to definitely reduce the amount of both of those. So funny enough, in this video, I actually only cut up 6 shallots, and in the recipe, it says to do 12. But my eyes couldn't handle cutting up 6 more, so 6 it was. And for the chilies, you're supposed to use 8 red chilies that are fairly mild. However, these ones that I got from the grocery store were very hot, so I didn't want to completely ruin the dish. So I decided to reduce those 2, which was a good call. And just a fun note for everyone, please wear gloves when handling hot chilies because I thought I could be the exception and touched my face. And let's just say my hands and my face were burning. And if you wonder why I look different in this video, that's because it was hours after painful chili face. So learn from a mistake. All right, let's move on. You're also going to add the garlic and ginger to the mixture and saute everything together for 15 minutes. Then you're going to add the soy sauces and sugar and the black pepper. And this is where I would actually reduce it from 5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons because y'all saw my reaction of how powerful this black pepper is. So definitely reduce it to 2 tablespoons and add more as needed to your liking. Then go ahead and add the tofu to the pan and stir until everything's combined, and then top that off with some nice green onions. I really like that this recipe requires an entire bag of green onions because usually for a recipe you use a couple and then they tend to go bad, or is that just me? But they tend to go bad, and so this way there's no waste at all and you use all of them, which is great. For the rating for the black pepper tofu, I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. Now I really do think there's a lot of potential behind this dish, but because of the quantities of ingredients were just too overbearing, that is why the score is so low. As for the recipe rating, I'm giving it a 2 out of 3. I really wish that they specified exactly the quantities and measurements for each of the ingredients as the oil and the cornstarch, because that could have really helped in guidance of how this would go. Let's go ahead and move on to our next recipe, which is our ginger fried rice, and let's see how that ended up going. Here we go. Okay. Whoa! Whoa! Don't like that. The problem with this dish is that it says it's ginger fried rice. I don't taste any ginger, and I know I put ginger in there. What I do taste is an overwhelming amount of peanut oil in here. It feels like I'm eating very soft peanuts, which is the rice. As you can see, this fried rice doesn't take a lot of ingredients to make. And honestly, I think that's one of its downfalls. It's too simple and the flavors that are in it are just too overpowering. So how we start off with this rice is they recommend actually having 4 cups of fresh rice. Now, normally with fried rice, you use day-old rice, but they're suggesting in this recipe that you can still make really good fried rice with fresh rice by doing this quick trick. So you spread it out and lay it on the baking sheet, and you can leave it on your counter, or you can even stick it in your freezer and let it chill while you prepare the other ingredients. Then in a large skillet, you're going to add the peanut oil, ginger, and garlic to it, and cook the garlic and ginger until it's nice and crispy. Now the recipe suggests to add 1/4 cup of oil, which I did, but I found that it is the root problem of this dish, and I would actually recommend reducing it to 1 tablespoon and then adding more as needed as you continue cooking throughout the recipe. Once the ginger and the garlic are browned and crispy, you're going to take them out of the pan, strain them, and then return the oil-infused peanut oil into the pan again. And then the recipe suggests to add 2 more tablespoons of oil along with the leeks to the pan, and I would not do that. I would just return the infused oil, and I think that is plenty. And then I would actually recommend, if you need more liquid, I would actually do butter instead, because the flavor will help mild everything out. This, like I said, you just taste peanut oil. Then over medium heat, you're going to add the rice and then season it with salt and cook until it's warmed through. Then add in the toasted sesame oil along with the soy sauce and the crispy garlic ginger and stir until combined. Then in another skillet, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of oil to the pan, and you're going to do sunny side up eggs in them. So like I mentioned again, is that the peanut oil just overpowers these eggs. I will say that they cooked them beautifully though. Like, these were some nice glossy, perfectly cooked eggs. Then you just take the eggs out very carefully, shake off any excess oil, and you're going to put them on a plate, or you can just top them on your fried rice dish and enjoy. Now let's get into the ratings for this. For the ginger fried rice, I'm giving that a 1 star. I don't like this at all. And I wish there was other ingredients. I've made better fried rice than this. So, don't want that again. For the recipe portion for the ginger fried rice, I'm gonna go ahead and just give that a 2.5 stars because it was easy to follow. So I really appreciated the tips in there that worked out pretty well. It was just too much peanut oil and kind of too simple. So, you're done. Now we're gonna go ahead and move on to our third and final side dish, which is our fried asparagus with miso dressing on page 188. Here's how it tasted. Smear it in the sauce a little bit, get some of those crispy leeks. I like that. When I first tried the sauce by itself, I was like, this is not gonna work. Oh my gosh. I'm not a big fan of it, but you pair it with the asparagus, it's super good. We're going to start with making the miso dressing. So to make this, you're going to combine the miso, the garlic, the soy sauce, grapeseed oil, and vinegar. Then you're going to check the sweetness and you can add some sugar syrup if needed. Then give it a quick taste to see if there's enough sugar in there and set it aside. In a large skillet, you're going to pour 2 inches of oil into a pot, then turn the heat up until it reaches 300 Fahrenheit degrees. Then go ahead and place the leeks in and fry them until they just start turning golden brown. Then you're going to remove them and put them into a paper towel lined bowl, or just a bowl because that's what I did, and then set them aside. Now you're supposed to set them aside for 2 whole hours so that they can get nice and crispy and dry out, but I'm not going to do that. Once all the leeks are out of the skillet, then you're going to reheat the oil up to 320 degrees Fahrenheit to 340 degrees Fahrenheit. And go ahead and gently put in the asparagus, and you're going to fry them for 1 to 2 minutes until the asparagus is bright green and just tender. Once the asparagus are finished cooking, you're going to transfer them to a paper towel lined plate and just let the excess oil kind of seep off onto that paper towel. Then use a miso sauce to spread on a plate and then top it off with that fried asparagus. And voila! The dish has come together quite quickly. I was really excited about this dish because it was only for 2 to 4 servings and only required 9 asparagus. Now, my issue with it was that because there was only 9 asparagus, as you can see, I'm left with at least half of a cup of the miso dressing. So I was really disappointed in this aspect that there weren't equal portions of asparagus to miso dressing. They really need to balance that out. Here's my final rating for the recipe and how it tasted. I'm gonna give that a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Very happy with it, and I would say though it's much of like a fancy dinner, so this isn't your everyday quick asparagus deep fry. So for the asparagus, 3.5 out of 5 stars, and for the recipe, giving it a 2 out of 3 stars. The reason for this is because the quantities are a little bit bizarre, so for that I'm docking it a full star because that's a big deal. To me, at least. Now we're moving on to our main entree, and it is our crispy skinned salmon. Let's get tasted. Overall, I was really happy with this dish. It's very quick and easy to make up, especially on one of those busy weekday nights that you have. And I'm just starting off having washed and dried my fish and then seasoning it with salt and some white pepper. Now, the recipe does say that you can use black pepper if you don't mind seeing the speckles. Then I'm topping that off with some Wandra flour. And what the Wandra flour helps to do is just really create that crispiness on the skin. And really it just helps enhance it, especially when it's contacted with the oil. So this was my first time actually cooking with Wandra flour. I actually didn't even know what it was. So not only did I learn a new recipe, I learned something new in the kitchen. And the Wandra flour has less protein in it than all-purpose, and that's why it's recommended for this dish, is because it doesn't clump up. So if you were to make a sauce and you're going to toss in some Wandra flour to help thicken it up, then it becomes nice and smooth and creamy. So that's the same principle, but with the fish and the skin on this. It helps create a nice crispy skin. Now this fish is a half stovetop, half oven combo, so make sure that your oven is set to 400 degrees. And then in a large skillet, you're going to heat up 1 tablespoon of canola oil. And once it's nice and hot, you're going to add the salmon skin side down and then use your spatula to press down on the salmon so it really seals the salmon to the skillet, making sure the skin is contacting with the bottom of the skillet so that you get that crispy skin. Cook all the salmon for 2 to 3 minutes on skin side down, then flip over and take it off the stovetop, place it into the oven for a remaining 2 to 3 minutes. Now the recipe says that they're done when you insert a metal skewer into them and then take the skewer and place it onto your lip, and if it's warm, then they're done. But I looked online and it said that if the temperature of the fish inside of the thickest part was 145 degrees, then it was cooked all the way through. So that's what I did instead. On the salmon, the crispy skin definitely gives it a nice texture to it and elevates the dish slightly. So if you don't mind the salmon flavor taste, then this is great. Honestly, you can make this in 5 to 7 minutes, which is pretty dang good for like a dinner. For the salmon, I'm gonna go ahead and rate it a 3 out of 5. It's a good basic salmon, not a lot of flavor to it. So for the recipe, it's definitely really easy to follow, super simple, and 3 stars as well. So good for that. On to our most important, in my opinion, course, the dessert. Now you can find this on page 226, and this is the fresh ginger cake. Dessert! And this has powdered sugar on top of it. And you can also do the sweet potato caramel, I said it right guys, sauce to go on top. Unfortunately, the amount that I made that I put over the ice cream from last week, I didn't have enough to put over this guy. So, and I didn't want to make all the sweet potatoes again. So powdered sugar was their other suggested topping. So we're giving that a try. Holy crap. Whew. Gingery. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was expecting more of that from the fried rice. Okay, hold on. The ginger heat is just like hitting me hard. 1 second. Whew, it's going up to my eyeballs. Okay, that is like taking a bite straight out of ginger. If you are a ginger fan, like true ginger fan, like you could eat it, like can't like just pop it in your mouth, this cake is for you. This cake is not for me. To make this dish, you're going to first start off by making the quatre piece, which I probably just botched saying that, but basically it's a 4-spice blend mix consisting of 1 tablespoon of ground white pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, which I didn't add because my husband's allergic to it, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, and 1 teaspoon of grated nutmeg. Now, the recipe suggests to get an egg size of ginger and grate that to medium fine. Now, this is where I feel like the recipe really went downhill. Between this and the white pepper, I think it was just too much. And I would actually reduce the amount of fresh ginger in there because you already have 1 teaspoon of ground ginger in there. So it's just a lot of ginger. So I would reduce this to maybe a teaspoon of fresh ginger. Okay, my rant is over. Moving on with the recipe, you're going to take your butter and add it to the water, and then you're going to stick it in the microwave or over a saucepan and melt the butter until it's just all melted. You don't want it super hot because we're going to add the eggs to it in a little bit, and you don't want the eggs to cook. So then you're going to go ahead and add the brown sugar and mix that together. Then add the molasses and the dark corn syrup to the mixture. And go ahead and mix that to combine, and then add in your egg and then mix it all together once again. Once the egg is fully incorporated into the mixture, you're going to take now your fresh ginger and add that to the mixture, stirring consistently. And go ahead and take the whisk up, and if you see any ginger strings on the whisk, as you can see when I'm bringing the whisk up, you want to remove those to help reduce such an overall intense ginger flavor. Now you're going to add the flour, baking soda, 1 teaspoon of quatre piece, and you're going to whisk that together for 1 to 2 minutes until everything is fully incorporated. Once the mixture becomes a batter, you're going to grab a greased 8x8 baking dish, and you can line it with parchment paper like what I did, and this is a really quick hack that you can do to help easily pull your cake out when it's done baking. So then you're going to pour your batter into the cake pan, and you're going to tap it a few times until all the air bubbles release. And then stick it into a preheated oven at 350 degrees for about 35 minutes. And then insert a toothpick to make sure it's done, and use a knife to cut around its edges, and then use the parchment handles to pull that cake out, and voila! Now, I know I said a lot of kind of crummy things about this cake, but let's focus on some positives. Look how beautiful this cake is. It's very flat, which I really appreciate. It's a small cake, so it's great for if you and your loved one, and maybe you have a few little kids at home, and it's very simple and it comes together very quickly. So those are the pros to this cake. For the ginger cake, I'm giving it a 2. The ginger is just so overpowering. I almost can't enjoy eating cake because it feels like I'm doing a cleanse. Which is great to eat cake and do a cleanse, but that's not the purpose why I eat a cake. I feel like it needs like a cream cheese frosting to help mellow out that ginger. And it's a little bit dry. On the cooking time it says to do about 35 minutes, but I really hope that they would have like given you a little bit more gauge, you know, like 30 to 35 instead of just like about 35, just for those other people that aren't experienced at baking. For the recipe portion, I'm going to give that a 3 stars. I mean, it was very clear and explained, and the cake did come out really nice. I just didn't prefer the taste of it. It was just too strong for me. So, yep, there we have it. My tongue is burning of ginger. Woo! Well, we tasted, we were disappointed, and we're hoping for a better menu in next week. These are all the recipes you can find in the Food52 Genius recipes if you want to try them at home and see if you like them. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe on my channel and ring that notification bell so you know when the next video comes out. If you have any comments of what you want to see in the book or a next cookbook after the series is done, then leave a comment below so that I can see it and respond. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Oh.